Welcome to the OC. My name is Phil. This is Corey, my co-host, and we are Ordered Chaos Podcast. And we are talking about Jeffery Epstein.
Uncle Jeff.
You don't want Uncle Jeff watching your kids. That's for damn sure.
Don't leave your kids with Uncle Jeff. That's for sure. That is an established fact right now. That's an established fact.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, boy or girl. I don't know. Just, yeah. He's dead. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, he's not going to, or is he? We'll talk about
Or is he? Or is he? Maybe he's not.
I found it hard. I thought this was a tough one to get into. I knew he had done some things, but I didn't realize how much he had done. But yeah, it was very.
So the problem is what he has done, and this is we'll be covering this. It's the idea of what is it he did. So we know what he's been convicted of doing.
Yeah,
we know there's been an awful lot of civil suits that he settled out of court, which again is probably no admission of guilt, but okay, make this go away, a la Michael Jackson, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we know how things ended. Poorly for Jeff. Good.
Yeah, poor Jeff. No, he got, and that's the thing is I don't feel bad that he got killed in prison. But anyway, we're going to.
Did he get killed? Did he get killed though?
I don't know. We'll get into that because it's fucking weird.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you go.
This is why I kept calling it out with Diana during the Diana episode, because it's like you read it, you start watching it, you're like,
yeah, you just knew more than I did about him. I didn't know that stuff, and then I'm reading it and I'm going, oh my god, fucking, this is like a Diana sort of expose. Other than Diana was a sweet lady and this guy was just a pedophile monster.
Correct, but when you start looking at some of the details, you're like, wait a second here. Okay, similar to the whole idea of,
that's when you compared them and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I'm not comparing them as individuals, right? I'm not that we know of. For all we know,
comparison is it
or assassination? Character assassination.
I don't. It could be. So we'll kind of, I think, give a little history of the guy because I mean I thought it was pretty interesting. Born in 1953 in Brooklyn to middle class parents.
And I think he only ever finished high school. Like I don't think he actually has any degrees to his name or anything.
I don't know. Well, he became a teacher. He taught. What was it? His first job. He got a job teaching mathematics and physics.
Probably to high school students, right?
Yeah, right. And then he got shit canned for poor performance.
Well,
or perhaps fucking the students. We're not sure.
he actually went to New York University and he went to Cooper Union. Didn't get a degree from either of them, so I have no idea how he managed to teach.
Well, you got to remember he was 66, right, when he died. So I mean that was in 2019. So I mean, this guy, it's going back, right? Maybe teaching, the qualifications to be a teacher have changed. Like
you just gotta like working with kids, I guess.
But he got in, from what I read, by knowing somebody. It's sort of like somebody got him the job, and then he fucking royally fucked it up. And then from there, he goes on to kind of be like a banker, like a Wall Street guy.
Baron Stearns or some Bear
Stearns.
Yeah.
They end up fucking loving him. They think
because he makes the money.
Yeah, he's a narcissistic psychopath who, he can sell. And that's hey, if you look at some of the top sales people sell at like corporations, CEOs, they tend to follow a similar pattern.
It is a bit of a mix, but yes, there is an awful proportion of psychopaths, sociopaths, whatever you want to call them, narcissists in power. The whole dark triad, right? Narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. They tend to score high on those. That's the dark triad, folks. It's a lesson.
The dark triad. I thought it was opium. Opium, cocaine, and speed. No, that's a different triad.
I'm gonna think. Do you have everything covered there? You've got
heroin, cocaine, and amphetamines.
I know you got your uppers, whatever. Yeah, I guess. Sure. I'm going to have to defer to your wisdom on this, Phil.
I have no idea. Yeah.
From North Bay.
College was a rough time for me. So he becomes partner in 4 years at this firm. He's a fucking nobody.
Yep.
Nobody.
With no education. Again, I want to stress that. No
None,
education.
Yeah. None legit anyway.
No MBAs, no nothing.
So this was 1976 he started. So 1981, he had just become partner, and he gets fucking nailed for fine for violating practice laws. Very vague. He probably some insider trading shit or who knows. Bear Stearns says, okay, well, I love you, I like you. I can't fucking work for you. You can't work for me anymore. And I'll support you in whatever you do, but I won't be here. So he starts his own business. Didn't he do like 4 foundations for himself? Well, not at the beginning, I don't think, but he might have. What he did was he started basically doing collections, right?
Like debt, the whole debt thing.
High-end collections. So like when someone would be sued, or fraudulent shit, he would go in and try and get the money. He was just basically a goon.
A repo man.
Yeah,
I did that.
Yeah,
fun.
I know. But people that say like you worked for me and you embezzled from me and you fucked off, well, he would go and find them and get your money back. That's the kind of business he was running. Then he had very specific clientele requirements, so people said. But nobody really knows much about his fucking businesses. It's even to this day, the man's dead, and the business. There's some of his businesses are still running, but like nobody.
His wealth was in question actually in a couple spots. Everywhere. What do you mean? They're not sure exactly how much he made. The general consensus seems to be that he talked a better game than he played. That he had less money than he was actually claimed to have.
Maybe. Now that's debatable. He had some pretty heavy friends, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves because
gotta set the stage.
Set the stage, yeah. Apparently he did a bunch of stuff for Israel. Did you read about this? Where he actually ran guns and he
okay, so again, using the term apparently, right? They've linked him to Mossad. Right?
Very much, yeah.
Very much. They've linked him to it, but they haven't proven any of those links.
No.
But we'll get to that later when we talk about the sweetheart deal about
Well, this is so basically let's see here. Oh, he was involved in one of the largest Ponzi schemes ever, $450 million.
I think we've beat that now. I think we've done better. We've evolved since then.
I'm sure. Yeah. But and this was through Towers Financial Corporation. But he left before the shit hit the fan. He was smart. He was like, I'm out of here.
He got out before the music stopped.
Yeah, almost like he was tipped off maybe by like whoever was investigating. Yeah. So this is the thing about him. He's shrouded in, I'd like to say mystery. I mean, he could be, nobody knows his financials. Nobody knows like where he made his money. Nobody knows anything about this fucking man. But yet he's willy-nilly about recruiting young girls to do horrible things.
Did you hear about his Manhattan mansion with the lead-lined bathroom with the CCTVs and the phones and stuff like that?
Every one of his properties was fully equipped with cameras and CCTVs. Every one of them. So he had one in New Mexico, one in Palm Beach, one in Paris, one in New York, and one on the Virgin Islands. All of these are multi-million-dollar.
The one in Manhattan is fascinating because it actually hidden under a flight of stairs. It's got a lead-lined bathroom, not a bedroom. It's a lead-lined bathroom that all the CCTV cameras wired into, had a phone in it. It's kind of like a panic room, I guess.
Well, but what better room? You don't want to shit in your bedroom.
But lead-lined. So
radiation.
But you don't build a panic room with like that. That's a fallout shelter, your lead line, right? Normally you do lead line to make a secure security area, right? So you don't want emissions, right?
Right. Yeah, because you could chip through that with my pen.
It's not as sturdy. It's not that sturdy.
It's not. No, not in comparison to, steel. Yeah, I mean, it's some weird stuff. So we got he starts another company later on called J. Epstein and Co. And all
no
he
relation.
does,
no relation.
No relation. But all he does is services billionaires. That's his thing. So he gets in bed with this guy named Leslie Wexler. Heard of?
Yep.
Yeah. So he's Victoria's Secrets and L Brands is the his line of work, and he's a billionaire, and he's the fucking dude that gave him that apartment, one of the biggest places in like apartments in Manhattan. He gave that to Epstein. 85 million, I think it was something ridiculous.
And he is actually, for the record, Epstein's only known client.
Yeah.
They know no other clients. It was just this. Apparently, it was just he had other clients, but the only one they know is this fellow.
Yeah, he had other clients, but this was the only one that was sort of open. I mean, but then he was like, he made a ton of friends. He was going to Israel a lot. He had a lot of ties. I think that's why people suspect that he's, Israeli intelligence, is that he was traveling to Israel all the time. But his wealth, it just sort of spiraled, man. Like this dude just became fucking rich, like what seems like overnight. You go from 76 to 90 or 1981, like within 5 years, this guy is fucking made a name for himself.
One of the things I read about Epstein's wealth is Maxwell. So her father, he was involved in some of the wealth transfer to Epstein.
Right. That's another sort of, because so that's Robert Maxwell. So she meets him in the late 80s. Right. So early 90s, late 80s, they become friends more so in the 90s. So that's where, but he was already making money by then.
Yeah.
Right. So as much as, that's the people suspect that, this guy, he's a huge mogul. Like he is basically owns like newspapers and what is he? He's like Robert Maxwell. Okay. What does he do?
Okay, let me see. Maxwell, give me a second.
Yeah,
I've got his little black
he's
book.
A tycoon of some, like he's a what is he? I think it's newspapers, like it's things like the Gazette, but it's all in Britain.
Oh, like the Daily News or the Globe.
That kind of stuff. So that's where he's made all his money. And he owns publications all over the place, right? So yeah. But anyway, he meets this, and this Ghislaine Maxwell. I'm just going to call her Maxwell. I have a hard time saying Ghislaine.
G.
And then
G Max. We'll just call her G Max. We'll just call her G Max for short.
Hey G. Yeah, he meets her, and then fuck, and I'm assuming this guy didn't just all of a sudden start doing it. He's been doing this for years. He just got caught. So that's the next thing. Maybe we should talk about the rooms. So every one of the bedrooms that was attached to any of these places and the washrooms, the toilet facilities, all had cameras in them. So, that tells you a little something.
Everything was wired up, and again, is it from a security perspective or a voyeur perspective or both?
I think it's from a blackmail perspective. You got to remember the clients that he's starting to entertain, right? So, and that's where we get into now. Bill Clinton, he becomes one of his buddies. Prince Andrew.
So the three big ones, if I had to say what the three big ones are, it's Clinton, Andrew, and Trump. Those are the three
big ones.
Those are the three big ones. Now there are tons others. You remember Stephen Hawking's?
Stephen Hawking, yeah, for sure.
So, did you know he custom modified a submarine so Stephen Hawking's could go underwater?
Yeah, you told me that. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
What the hell?
There's a reason, though. We'll get into that. Did you do any research on?
I kept it at the high level of like, okay, wait a second. Yeah. Stephen Hawking's went to Pedophile Island.
Well, and I was really curious about that. So
he's in a conference in the area, and he like I read some of it that he was in the area.
He was invited to the conference by Epstein, and he was flown there by Epstein. So everything was all, but Epstein was known for, donating to Harvard University, donating to different scientific programs, donating copious amounts of money.
Which gets freaky later on when you hear about his focus on transhumanism later on, where he's like,
that's what I was getting.
Where it's like,
so that's what I was getting at. I mean, there's a reason. There's a reason that I believe that, he was really concerned about that. So now we fast forward a little bit, because I mean, there's not a lot. I mean,
there's stuff, but it's hard to say, like, until you hit his first criminal case in 2005.
That's right.
There's a lot of stuff that's like, there's stuff that happened, don't get me wrong, because that's how all this sort of set up, like, just to help fill in some of the gaps. What do we got here for, let's see if I can find out. Just pull up. So so the cases against him really don't start until 2008. But some of them are set earlier, like 90s. Like
2005 was when he was actually charged.
Oh, I'm talking civil cases. So some of the civil cases,
because
had a prior, like 1990. Hey, when I was 13, he diddled me. Now I'm 45, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's really odd. I mean, so what he was doing was procuring young girls, and the way his method of actually. And how long he was doing it, nobody really knows. But he would pay these young girls to go and find other young girls, and becomes a circle of, hey, you can make an easy $200 or $300 if you just come to this house with me and, give this old guy a massage.
In your underwear.
Well, but the girls would never say that, because most people
they say it quiet. In your underwear.
Yeah. The knee jerk would be, you fucking what now?
I'm wearing my underwear already.
Like, and maybe some of, obviously there may have been more people that came forward that we're not hearing about. But what happens in 2005 is that the stepmom of one of these girls calls the police. The girl was like, this is fucking weird. So Epstein invites her in, asks her to do some weird shit, and she's kind of like, you're a gross old man. No. Anyway, she leaves, and he was like, yeah, well, fuck you. And, but I guess he fondled her. He did some terrible things.
I suspect there was some at that age, they can't really consent. There was everything's non-consensual at that age. Like, for the record, folks, it's all non-consensual. It doesn't matter what anybody says. It's non-consensual.
Absolutely. It's just this dirty old man who fucking living out some crazy fantasy. So anyway, the stepmom, good for her. She calls the police, and they knew who he had donated money to the police. So so this is all happening in Palm Beach. So I don't know if you're familiar with Florida. Palm Beach is just a place where money, it's just money. You cross a bridge and you're into West Palm Beach. That's where, like, we could afford to stay.
What are you saying, Phil?
I mean, maybe you could afford Palm Beach. I don't know.
Okay, for the record, folks, assuming this isn't 10 years in the future when we're YouTube celebrities,
yes,
he's probably right.
Yeah. So, it's old money. It's very old money. It's your Trumps, it's your Epsteins, it's your movie directors, and people like the rich of the absolute elite are in Palm Beach, right? So he's donating money to the police force, gives them $100,000. I don't know if you read about it. This is, and
he donated a lot of money. He greased a lot of palms, of palms.
Right. And which you can say, well, he donated the money not expecting anything in return, but judging by his character, I would think that he would expect some shit in return, like maybe turning a blind eye to, you know, so they weren't really quick to respond. Like they didn't treat it as serious, perhaps, as they should have.
Now, the police chief is actually the one who said the prosecutor was moving really slowly on it, and actually said we need to get the FBI. And it's like the police chief.
No, I don't. No, I don't mean the. I mean the initial call.
Like gotcha.
No, I think the chief was he was legit. He was like, "Fuck you, you just a dirty pig." But what I think happened was that they have to go and investigate, and here's this rich guy, and then here's these girls from across the river, or across the bridge, and they're going, well, what is this? Do they just want? Because what Epstein is telling people is that, oh yeah, they just wanted money from me, like, this is common, and he's a really good liar, so he was able to. But then the cops are like, and then more people came forward, right? So,
and so this is part of the problem with the Times. This was 2005, before our the Time's Up, the whole Me Too movement. Our good buddy Harvey was active at this time.
Who was also a Harvey Weinstein, good friend with it. This is the problem, right? People that are in, like, Kevin Spacey, right? Sexual assault, right? Kevin Spacey, little boys.
Whatever happened with that? Didn't all that stuff kind of sort of went away?
Yeah, like it usually does. Here's lots of money. Shut your mouth. Go get some therapy. Right. So yeah, like Woody Allen. That's fucking weird, dude.
Yeah, apparently apparently Epstein had a framed picture of him and Woody Allen in his men in New York.
They're like good buddies. He also had a ton of naked young underage girls in his apartment that he deemed as art. Yeah, it's not weird at all, right?
Not weird. And also a lot of books on S&M. He was apparently big into the master slave sort of thing, and not in the sense of hard drives or computers master slave, like actual how you
ball gag
and books on how to properly groom, which again comes down to the young issue, right? You want to groom them to be the subservient whatever.
Yeah.
Sounds like that NXM, the one that Allison Mack.
I'm not sure.
Did you ever hear about that?
Yeah.
It was this it's I think it's called NXM or NXVM or whatever. Look at Allison Mack. She used to be Chloe on Smallville. And she was basically recruiting sex slaves for.
I did remember hearing that in the So, well, this Ghislaine Maxwell, same idea. Like, I think they were, in the real deep. And it's funny because there were witnesses in 1995, and I guess I kind of did a timeline here. So this woman, Vicky Ward, and she was a writer for Vanity Fair, right? So Vanity Fair is like doing an expose on him, on Epstein. And the reason they're doing that is because everyone's talking about this guy and how much money he has and how he's single and how he's da-da-da-da-da. So Vanity Fair wants to do find out who the fuck he is, basically. So her editor, who's Graydon Carter, says, go ahead, let's do this. So as Vicky Ward is like investigating, who he is, and some witnesses come forward. So the first witness is a girl named Maria Farmer. So Maria Farmer is like a young artist, kind of budding artist who, she's, I think, 18 years old, or just on the cusp. So anyway, Epstein meets her through an art gallery. Him and Maxwell basically get her to do some stuff for them. And he's like really interested in her, obviously.
Not because of her art.
No. And, and that's how he would do this. He'd be like, hey, you want to work for me? Come out to the ranch. So they end up taking her out to the ranch. And then along with her little sister, Annie, who's like 14, I think, at the time. And that's when all this, so these girls came to and admitted this to Vicky Ward, right? So what happens is Vicky confronts him about Epstein about this, and all hell breaks loose. Like the editor, this Graydon Carter, he's finding like dead severed cat heads in his garden, bullets on his front doorstep, like, yeah.
Okay, interesting. Didn't read that, but okay.
Yeah. So this is all part. Yeah, this is part of the Vanity Fair. And so they go to the police in New York, and basically New York says, "Yeah, no, this isn't our jurisdiction. You're going to have to call the FBI." So they call the FBI. Nobody calls them back. And Vicky Ward continued, and she goes, they said they investigated and there's nothing to their case. And this is in 1995. So, yeah.
So that's what I was getting at about some of the civil cases come up much later where it's like, okay, you're not going to be able to seek criminal.
Yeah, you can,
but you can sue them, and like he wants stuff to go away. So he pays.
These turned into, so she found upwards of 18 of these young girls at that time. And it was just the FBI was like, we're not interested. It was a weird way that they're like, no, type idea. So they were blown off, and that was in 1995. So you can look it up. It's Vanity Fair. Vicky Ward, whole article on it through Vanity Fair. And now Vanity Fair is like eating this up. That, sort of. They got bullied. Epstein's like, I will sue you if you write anything about these. Like, I will. And they were worried.
Well, because the only defense against what is it? Slander is spoken, libel is print. The only defense against libel or slander is,
I don't know,
the truth.
Oh yeah.
So that's the big defense against it, right? That it is true. So you have to be able, if you say something, you have to be able to back it up.
Right.
So
and these young girls, I mean, they totally ruined their fucking lives. This is not something that, this guy. So they ended up getting away from him. But Epstein's I think there's a lot more to this guy than what meets the eye. I don't think he was just
like a transformer.
Like an Autobot.
More Decepticon, but yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, it wouldn't be an Autobot. What am I thinking?
No, they're the good guys. Yeah. They're the good guys, right?
They are the good guys. Yeah.
But back to the 2000s, back to the actual first criminal case, 2005, case, Palm Beach.
Goes down the same fucking way. That's the other thing.
Well, it doesn't go down quite the same way. So
no. I mean, what he does to the girls.
Oh, gotcha. Fair enough.
Right. So he does the same thing to all of these fucking girls, which is, come on in. All I want is a massage. I like massages. I like them from exceptionally young ladies.
And who are not masseuses, have weak hands.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And once you're here, then then the game changes, right? So, and he tended to target, and I think when he was at, he would target certain people. I don't know if he had influence in the schools in the West Palm Beach area, but like he knew things. He knew which people to kind of target, people that had already had been abused and things like that. So,
and I do wonder about that. So is that a case of foreknowledge, or is that a case of just a predator knowing what his knowing the vulnerable, right?
Oh no, and I agree with that completely. That
like knowing the ability, like I can recognize.
Like, oh yeah, I recognize that shit. But it wasn't often him that was doing that recruitment, right? It'd be somebody else. It'd be a friend, right? So that leads me to go, why,
But that's where I look at it. You don't know how many came through, and he said, you know what? This person is not suitable. This person I cannot. So I have a feeling it wasn't 17 people. There were many, many more, but it's like, oh, hey, yeah, I can read this person, and this person there is no way this person does not have serious enough daddy issues to want to give me a massage.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Massage. Yeah.
Well, right.
Right. So, well, but the police department does investigate, and they do a good job. They are watching young girls coming and going from the property. There's a lot of weird shit that's happening at this place. And finally, I think that they decide to do an investigation with the FBI.
So what I had read was the police chief called in the FBI because things were moving too slowly. Yeah. He basically called bullshit and said, "What the hell's going on?" Clearly, we're either the prosecution's dragging its ass, somebody's dragging their ass. Let's get the FBI in.
And I think a guy with that much money, he's got people everywhere, that want to please him and tell him, okay, hey, we're watching you. Didn't seem to change his fucking behavior at all, though.
Which was the surprising part, given the fact that he's clearly not a dum-dum. No. So this is a man who is clearly down the rabbit hole with his obsessions and whatnot. Like he is confident.
Very confident that, hey, I'm not going to get caught.
I want to say this is a guy who is completely a slave to his own fantasy or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's trying to enslave other people to it too. So.
And so it would seem. And now a lot of I think we'll have to revisit this down the road once more information comes out, because, there's lists and a whole bunch of stuff that still has to come to light on all the guests. There's so many guests that frequented his island that,
And they were talking. So one article I was reading was they did the little black book. So here were the names in his black book, which were all, it's a who's of finance, Hollywood, politics. They're all there.
Big
but
money.
Then they actually pulled up the flight logs.
Yeah.
So the private plane being chartered, anybody who wrote it.
Yeah, their name goes on it. Yeah. Like Clinton denied that he spent any time there. His fucking name's on there like a dozen times.
His name's on there, yeah.
Lots. Lots. No, oh yeah. I barely knew the man.
But in Bill and maybe Trump's defense, I don't know if this is appropriate.
I don't know if Trump visited that island.
But the idea of their association with Epstein, the guy's got money. They have, like in the case, not so much in Trump's case, because I guess he's still looking for investors. So maybe in both cases, Epstein had money, and it probably doesn't hurt to cozy up to a guy with money. And Bill wanted to be elected president, right? Or
this was after
reelected. Yeah, because I guess he wanted. I guess maybe it was for Hillary's campaign. Maybe it was for Hillary's campaign.
I can't remember, but I'm sure that he helped. Yeah, because he would donate to different campaigns and different organizations. And
back to your previous thing about having people, right? So if you help somebody with their campaign, maybe you could drop them a line saying, "Hey, I'm wondering if anybody's investigating my pedo island."
Well, that's it. Well, the FBI pulls out 40 victims of what was going on at his house. And in that New York or Palm Beach home, right?
But they only actually interviewed 5 of the alleged victims. That was one of the funny parts. So they got 17 witness statements, but they only interviewed 5 of the alleged victims.
Well, they never got a chance because that's right. So there was 40 confirmed minors that they had names for. You're right. They got statements from, I think it was 15 or 17, and then only 5 that they deemed were, but that was because this moved to court right away. And then what happened? You know what happened? Yeah, he gets the U.S. Attorney basically says, for Florida says, we're gonna do a plea bargain, and with the plea bargain, we're gonna do a non-prosecution agreement.
Yeah. So this is the Alex Acosta thing, right? So I was reading an article about one of the prosecutors on that, and she was was her name?
Where she says it's above her.
Well, no, so that was apparently that was Alex Acosta that said that about that, which we'll get to. But this is Marie Villafana. So she was assigned to oversee the day-to-day, and she was basically saying, "What the hell are we doing?" So she got kind of cut out of the process.
Oh, okay.
Now, apparently they say she was a hard charger, and she had numerous confrontations with her, the people in authority over her. So they're saying, "Oh, you know what? That's a big deal. She's just a jerk." But she actually was the one calling out a lot of this stuff, saying, "What the hell? We've got all this evidence."
The FBI is like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Right? The FBI was like, What?
They were pissed. Well, because it had the case. So I don't know the states how their law works exactly, but the non-prosecution agreement with the plea. So he pleaded down to what was it? Soliciting prostitution with a minor. I think it was 3 counts is what he ended up plea bargaining to. And that was pretty much it. He got his sentence was 18 months. And that's where shit starts to get really interesting. So the FBI is told this is a non-prosecution agreement. Your case is null and fucking void. Nothing you find from here on in matters.
So the official verdict was, one, he pled guilty to a state charge of procuring for prostitution a girl below the age of 18, sentenced to 18 months.
18 months, that's right. So I thought it was 3 counts.
He only pled guilty to 1, so that's what, at least what my notes say. He's only got 1.
Oh,
there should have been 3 more, but he pled guilty to 1, and that's what he got his 18 months for.
So and he doesn't do his 18 months in a state penitentiary,
which is where most sex offenders of doing this would wind up going. They would go to ass pounding jail. Not
you're going to get some fucking anal, problematic people that are.
It's going to be bad.
Fuck you. Yeah. But no, he goes to a private wing of, what is it, the Palm Beach Police Department? Like it's
the official designation is the Palm Beach County Stockade.
Right, which is part of the police department.
Yes.
So that's where he's going to spend his his 18 months. And so he's there for 3 months. So they get him a TV and they fucking powder room, fix him up real nice. So he's a guest. And then after, what is it? Like after 3 months, they say, we'll release you on a day program.
Work release up to 12 hours a day. He doesn't have to stay in it.
Day program, work release. So work release, you can leave for 12 hours a day and that's all fine and dandy.
It's a very forward thinking justice system.
Very. So he also says, and I don't know how it worked out with the guards, but I read about the guards. So he ends up taking like 2 guards with him, and he pays their wages while he is out for his 12-hour stint.
Yeah, they were the permit duties. They were the permit deputies, and he paid their overtime.
I'm like, what? And then they had to wear nice suits. And they would greet his customers and get drinks, and they were basically his bitches for 12 hours a day.
Well, so it's funny because they would actually be the ones to check and welcome guests at the front
desk. Well, that's what I'm saying. They were welcoming
of the sheriffs of the stockade. They would be checking in like, you want to come see? And the visitors' logs were destroyed, though. Don't worry.
Oh yeah, that's of course. Yeah, Bill and Hillary never went there.
Well, speaking of destroyed, okay, so this sweetheart deal, right? So one of the problems with it is they were trying to track who actually offered this, how this sweetheart deal that Epstein got came to light.
Right.
Okay. After 10 years ish, maybe 11 years, they're like, the email records of what happened with that. Oh, they must have they disappeared. They must have gotten destroyed. Oops.
After 10 years.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah. And they weren't supposed because
this is what
they were saying. They were trying to get these. Like you had the victims were trying to get these records. Say what the hell happened? Victims' rights group. Well, wait a second.
Yeah, for sure.
Why did you agree to this?
I mean, even so, who was it? It was the person who they were asked, like, why did you give this deal? And the person, I can't remember which one it was, who said,
"Is this Acosta?" It's Acosta.
It's Acosta. Yeah, who's like, this is a decision way above my pay grade. And this is a public servant going, your guess is as good as mine.
So what he apparently said, what Alex Acosta, the guy who offered he was the DA. He was the DA who offered this. He's quoted as saying, he offered a lenient plea deal because he was told that Epstein belonged to intelligence, was above his pay grade, and to leave it alone.
Oh, and to leave it alone, which that's coming from a district attorney, right? I mean, that's
this is the so 1 second. Acosta is the where is it? Where U.S. attorney in Miami.
Oh, U.S. attorney. Yeah. So he's the Florida U.S. attorney.
He was like
the big deal.
The big deal in Miami. Like this is the legal justice buck stops with him. And he was told, doesn't say who told him it, but somebody, Bird maybe.
Yeah, and these are people like for the state that can shut laws down. Like, yeah, think how much power a U.S. attorney has. You know, like they are the top dog, the top lawyer. Anyway.
And this is just this is literally the best. Now, the only sticking point for poor Uncle Jeff is he's a registered sex offender now.
For the rest of his life. Which did not seem to affect his travel, nothing.
That's right.
So he was flying to the Virgin Islands, I think it was 6 or 8 months into his sentence. He served 10 months of his sentence, something like that. It wasn't very much. He did 12 months.
So Epstein served about 13 months before being released for a year of probation on house arrest.
Yeah. Which he was flying to the Virgin Islands. He was flying all over the place.
Correct. While on probation, he was allowed numerous trips on his corporate jet to his residence in Manhattan and the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Yeah. So what does that tell you, right? If that was a regular person, even a rich regular person,
they would never have gotten away with that. Never.
Like,
never.
You look at a guy like Bill Cosby. No, I don't agree at all with what.
He wrote a lot of checks. So Bill wrote a bunch of checks. So Bill got Uncle Bill, who, by the way, was also on Epstein in Epstein's little black book.
Wasn't it crazy? Yeah, there's a ton of them. Now they said Tom Hanks was, and he fucking wasn't. I like Tom Hanks.
Okay, well, Katie Couric was in his little black book too. So
who's that? The supermodel there, Naomi Campbell. There's something weird with that fucking broad. I'm telling you that right now. Because she was, but she was in there with this, with Maxwell and Epstein. There's some weird shit going on there. I don't know. I think there's a lot more to this story. I think.
So she was found in the black book and in his private jet log.
Yeah. So there was a ton of them. Alec Baldwin was another one.
So Alec Baldwin denies it, and he offered, hey, I'll do, the one woman who brought it up said, well, I'll do a podcast with you to talk about how I'm not.
Well, I think he's on the transcripts, so I don't know when that's from. But that's what I mean. They're gonna release it. Well, they're supposed to release some of this stuff.
Invited Julie Brown, the Miami Herald reporter who resurfaced the Epstein story, to do a podcast. Denies knowing Epstein, although he appears in the little black book. So he appears in the book, but he doesn't appear in the logs for the pedo.
Oh, he doesn't? Oh.
No, but he appears in the black book. So clearly, Uncle Jeff had Alex's information. Maybe he looked it up in the yellow pages. I don't know.
I do apologize, Alec Baldwin. I apologize that I said that you were on the logs and you were not. Hope you can forgive me. Yeah. Anyway. So he had a plane. He had 2 planes. This fucking guy. And one was like a 727 or something. It was ridiculous.
Well, the funny thing about this, and I'm not sure how it works out, he was considered a level 3 sexual offender in New York. And yet he was still able to fly all over now he did have a fake passport too. So I don't know if that played.
What was he had a Israeli, but no,
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi. That's right. Saudi.
Yeah. The irony of Epstein having a Saudi Arabian passport is, but I guess he's rich. So it's, I don't know.
So there was talks too that some Saudi king and him were buddies too. The interesting thing is Prince Andrew. I did some reading of Prince Andrew, and so he lost his basically his duties, his royal duties, and all that shit.
He stepped down, so he was a fish. According to Prince Andrew, he said, "Hey, I'm going to step down from my," and the Queen agreed with him. It's like, yes, after that terrible interview you gave, yes, you should step down.
Andrew, you fucking monkey.
I'm so glad you're not becoming king. Who's never going to be king? You are.
Never. Yeah. So
they were friends for probably, like, out of everybody. So out of our big 3, he's the one who was actually Jeff's friend.
Like, they were buddies, no question. And now I think it was Maxwell who introduced them, right? Because
I believe so. Yeah, it's because the circle she ran in, and I mean,
her father. Her
yeah,
father is a big deal.
And he had stayed at, so Andrew had stayed at some of Epstein's estates.
Oh yeah. Oh, it was very common. And there's pictures of Andrew with these young girls.
Oh, those are all faked.
Oh yeah, of course.
Andrew cleared that up. He said that's all faked. Look, my arm is too elongated.
Oh, I'm so glad he cleared that up.
Yeah.
Look at
yeah.
The glove doesn't fit. Look at this.
Speaking of Deutsch.
Speaking of Deutsch.
I am American.
So yeah. Did you know he was part of the Trilateral Commission? What a crazy segue from our New World Order.
Really?
Yeah.
Because my understanding is Andrew has been pretty much a failure in everything he's tried. Are we talking Epstein or Andrew?
No, Epstein.
Oh, Epstein. Yeah, totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. I was gonna say Andrew.
No, not Andrew.
Okay.
They don't want him. He's got no money.
Well, he's got some, but he seems to burn through it and just
yeah. Young.
Okay, that makes sense. He's a financier.
Buying people, they're sex traffickers, for fuck's sakes. Yeah, so he was part of the Trilateral Commission, which is a group of non-political, as we discussed in the
trying to influence through economic means or political, like basically.
That's right.
Rich people. The Dark Council. That's not the UN Security Council. Right. So for those who are wondering, the UN Security Council, that's your Dark Council. But we've got other ones that are competing.
Yeah. Well, they're members. A lot of them are started by the Rockefeller, right? Mr. Rockefeller. He'd be a really good guy to do one day too.
So I've looked into some of those old robber barons, and you want to talk about, if you ever want to know why we need unions, and I'm not a big union guy at all, but when you hear about the company towns and all that stuff, you're like, okay, maybe letting capitalism run unabound is not the best idea, because it turns out
idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can go now into, I guess, I mean, we've talked about his life, his fucking legacy of
up to 2010 ish. And then between 2010 and his second criminal case, there's a big slew of civil cases that FYI are all settled out of court, or I want to say all settled out of court, but some I think were actually withdrawn. And they're not sure, they don't really get into details as to why they were withdrawn. I suspect they were withdrawn because it's like, listen, do you really want to do this?
Do you really? Yeah, we're going to take you for everything you're worth. Yeah, let's just take this bag of money.
Just take this bag of money and go by way. Or better yet, you have a choice. You can take this bag of money, or you can have an accident, because nobody's going to care about you.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's some of the things they talk about, that intimidation that has been, there's, I'm going to say documented cases of intimidation.
Well, this Ward, the woman from the Vanity Fair, she said that he was very intimidating. Like, he said stuff like, I know I'll find out where you live, and I'll find out where you go, and like, just in conversation, she's like, he's very weird, very intimidating. So I didn't know a lot about his death. And then I started reading about his death.
So before we get to his death, let's talk about what he actually got tagged on hard this time.
Oh, right.
His second criminal case. So his second indictment was in 2019, and this was sex trafficking charges.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they basically got search warrants to go into his Manhattan townhouse, evidence of sex trafficking, found hundreds and several thousands of sexually suggestive photographs of full or partially nude females, some of those confirmed as underage females, and a locked safe. Compact discs were found with handwritten labels including descriptions: young name plus miscellaneous nudes and girl pics nudes. It's just, so he got nailed with sex trafficking.
That's right.
And conspiracy to traffic minors for sex.
Right.
Okay, so that's what actually he got nailed with.
That was for sure. And there was still more. The case was still ongoing.
Oh yeah, they had talked. The grand jury indictment alleged dozens of underage girls were brought into Epstein's mansion for sexual encounters. Right.
Now, there's also talk that there were discs with individuals of some authority
Yes.
on there.
There
So I
were
think
talks.
there were talks. Yeah.
There were
Now I don't know if
talks.
they were found.
The guy recorded everything. So you're telling me he didn't back up on a hard drive
a
some
little
video?
insurance policy. Yeah. Obviously didn't work.
So get this. This is the part I laughed at. So he was being held. So while he was being arraigned, okay, and they basically deemed him a flight risk. Not surprisingly, when they found the expired Saudi Arabia planes and the Saudi Arabia passport, they're like, okay, maybe you should stay here.
Yeah.
This is what I laugh. He was jailed at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York, which has held prisoners such as John Cotty, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman.
Oh, El Chapo.
Yeah, so we got you're staying in the same place that El Chapo and John Gotti hung out. Shit's about to get real, folks.
Yeah, shit's gonna get real. And it did.
Oh, it did. So despite him taking precautions, so he did this, when they say you're in prison, first thing you need to do is pick the largest guy in the yard and beat him up. Okay. He didn't do that. What he did was pick the largest guys in the yard and said, hey, your commissary accounts, I'm going to make sure they don't run out. You make sure nothing bad happens to me. We'll be buddies.
That's right.
So he made a point to buy his way, even in jail, to try and make sure he wouldn't get molested.
Money's money.
Money's money.
Who knows? But he did get the shit kicked out of him. And that was on July 23rd.
He did, yeah. Apparently.
His cellie, who was, I don't have his name, but it's like 4 counts of murder or something.
So this is so that's Nick Tartalonge. Sounds like the Punisher.
Yeah.
He was there for 4 counts of murder.
Yeah.
And Epstein was found with marks around his neck that were suspected to be the result of a suicide attempt or an assault. His cellmate denied beating him up or trying to choke him out.
Yeah. So they deemed him, and you have to wonder. I mean, he had some bruising and some, things, but so they put him on suicide watch.
And they weren't sure whether it was staged, whether he was beaten up, whether it was actually a legitimate attempt. Or, he
just needed to be in suicide watch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because the staff, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of protocols in a prison.
And you've you've actually done this. So part of your background is in corrections. Yeah. Right.
So there's a lot of protocols where, it's not a light thing to put someone on a suicide watch. I mean, typically you have to, be, for one, suicidal. Narcissists typically are not suicidal. But
and psychopaths generally aren't suicidal either.
No. But there has to be something, and usually a doctor will have to verify the wounds if they are trying to hurt themselves. And there has to be things in the cell that, deem it to be such. Technology has changed since I've done any other stuff, right? So now there's cameras everywhere, and they usually work.
Or is there?
Is that right? I mean, they sometimes malfunction. Weird conveniently, yeah. So, they put him on suicide watch, which is basically you're under constant surveillance. There's nothing in your cell. A lot of times you're, stripped down. You're just in your skivvies, so you can't strangle yourself. One of the major ways people kill themselves in prison is they strangle themselves. We've done a lot of different ways. I don't really want to get into it. You got YouTube, you Google.
Okay, folks, when you do that, make sure you do it over a VPN and incognito mode. And because the last thing you want, and clear your browser afterwards, because otherwise, if anything ever happens, they'll say, hey, you were just Googling how to strangle people.
Or yourself in prison. And they get very crafty on how to do that. Very creative. Prisoners are very creative. He basically gets thrown into suicide watch. He's removed from suicide watch and then put back into a segregated cell. I think he's in, they call it special housing.
Yeah, the security housing unit.
Which could be just a transfer area. It could be a place where they're doing assessments, and usually in a prison, especially a prison that big, that'd be like, a place where they're doing intake and assessment. And that usually there's a lot more guards there too. So
and this is the funny part about this. Actually, the jail told the Justice Department that he would have a cellmate. He didn't.
He did at the beginning.
Yeah, but not when they transferred. Not this last little transfer. He was in the cell by himself, and he was supposed to have a cellmate.
Oh,
and then when he was transferred to the security housing unit, he was supposed to have a cellmate, which I guess.
And there would be 30-minute checks.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, 30-minute checks.
Neither of those happened.
Neither of those happened. Yeah. Well, yeah, because it was, what was it, August the 9th. Oh, it says here that he did have a cellie. And then
he was transferred out.
He was transferred out.
That's correct. Right. He was transferred out. So they never informed them. Yeah, coincidentally.
Yeah, hours
transferred out.
Hours before. So there was 2 guards assigned to him that evening, August the 9th. Both of which claimed to have fallen asleep for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Bullshit. Anyway, not only did they fall asleep, but somehow the 2 cameras that are in Epstein's cell malfunctioned. This is starting to sound familiar.
Exactly. So the 2 cameras. So funny enough, the 2 cameras malfunctioned. The 2 cameras in front of his cell malfunctioned, and another camera had footage that was unusable, whatever that means.
Right. So we have to look at, it's one. So anyway, we'll go into speculation in a minute. But basically, he's considered to have strangled himself to death, right?
With his bed sheet, with a strip of bed sheet.
Right.
Despite the fact from his bunk, and he's like 6 something.
Yeah. And basically, I think it was, his clavicles were broken too. There's a bone.
It's like the hyoid bone or the hyoid
bone. Yeah.
Hyoid bone.
Yeah. So they did the investigation. So, when someone does strangle themselves, I mean, there's obviously telltale signs of, typically there's no other injuries unless they fall. So yeah, they do an autopsy. They say that his wounds were more indicative of a homicide. So someone grabbing them by the throat. And
so they say. So the coroner who did the autopsy, Sampson, said, "No, I rule it's suicide."
He did.
The forensic pathologist brought in by Epstein's side says,
yeah,
the injuries he sustained and the severity of them are more consistent.
That's Michael Baden. Yeah. So that guy's a big deal. He's like, this is not typical.
Yeah. Barbara Sampson, she conducted the autopsy with Baden actually in the room doing it at the same time.
Oh, yeah, he was there. Yeah, he was there for it.
Yeah.
It's really weird. They find him dead in the cell at 6:30 that morning. And then the autopsy, I don't know when it happened. It must have happened shortly.
So they did the autopsy at August 11th. So I believe it was the 9th or the 10th. Yeah,
it was the 10th. The morning.
10th, he was found dead. By the 11th, he was not quite Diana embalmed hours within being dead, but still.
And well, I think this was,
And this is where it gets even worse, right? So when you have a death in a cell, it's supposed to be treated as an active crime scene.
Absolutely.
And his body was removed prior to any investigation.
So from my understanding, and this is true, is that back in the day, I mean, I don't know about now, new procedures and shit like that, but if somebody, even if they've committed suicide, you would treat that person like you're not able to deem them as dead. So you treat them, you would administer first aid and all that.
And apparently they did. They tried to perform they around 6:30.
Yeah.
Breathe. That's Epstein. Breathe.
Oh yeah. Well, you have the mouth, like you do. You do what you got to do.
But they didn't photograph his body. Like there's like they
no, but now it makes me wonder if they tried to move him to the infirmary, right? So, but if that's what they did because they didn't know if he was dead or not.
They probably should have unhooked him from the bunk when they were trying to pull him.
Yeah. Oh God. Oh, that's where all the bones broke.
That's right. Turns out we were trying to.
But without any pictures or any clarification, you have to go on whatever the guards say. And there was no mention of like how he did it. Right.
So the only mention I heard was strip a bed sheet, despite the fact that there were better materials in his cell, like the sleep apnea machine cables. Like there was stuff that he could have used better, and he hung himself from like the low bunk, which is like 4 feet off the ground. So I guess he kind of.
Well, yeah, and that's not unheard of.
But there was stuff on the top bunk that had he hung himself,
yeah,
the sudden jerk would have knocked stuff off the top bunk. Like it,
right. Yeah. And I think it takes an awful lot for someone to hang themselves. I think you really got to fucking want to die.
Particularly if, so most people who hang themselves usually remove the ability to extricate themselves from the situation. So for those who don't know, proper hanging involves breaking the neck, right? So a long drop followed by a short stop, right? Yeah. So you have the knot on a certain side when you tie the hangman's noose, and it breaks your neck. If you fail that, when the knot's in the wrong spot, you choke.
Yeah. Yeah. And either way, you can die. One takes a lot longer than the other.
Longer. And so, if you can extradite yourself from the choking, you're going to do it.
Yeah,
like self-preservation is going to kick in.
Like you said, right? Where you can you choke yourself to death. You don't hang you're not breaking your neck. Mm-hmm. And one of the techniques, I don't know if I want to mention it because I don't really like the idea of giving anyone any ideas. But I don't want to mention it. But yeah, there's ways to like if you pass out and that you don't all of a sudden start breathing again.
Correct.
Right. So they figure with Epstein that he killed himself, but I don't.
10:30 was the last time they checked on him. So they only, and even then, to say they checked on him, they have video footage of one of the guards walking by his cell at 10:30. That's it. Like that's entering the area where his cell was. Yeah. That's it. That's all they got.
And the cameras stopped working.
Well, did they ever work to begin with? Who knows? The only footage they have is 10:30 is the last time, and it's 6:30 in the morning.
That you have a high-profile client like Jeffrey Epstein, so we can compare him to a Paul Bernardo, right? In Canada, Paul Bernardo, super high level of criminal, right? This guy didn't shit without someone knowing, like literally. You're Paul Bernardo. They knew everything you were doing at every moment.
Unless you're Carla Homolka, in which case you get off because you've showed some videotapes and you're like, thanks for that agreement, folks. Talk about sweetheart deals.
Yeah. I'll testify as long as I get out. I'm not going to live a normal life. Anyway, that's a whole other fucking podcast. She deserved to fucking rot in jail too. But when you have a high profile person, typically, and then they were just on suicide watch. They're generally, not left alone. So, and they're not given an opportunity. You go off suicide watch, and then all of a sudden you have like cords and, it's low integration, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you don't want to be the guy that's known as the, he died on my watch, unless you got paid a lot of money.
I've actually got some pictures of the ligature marks on his neck, and this is one of the things they talk about is the. So the Baden fellow, the neck wound was in the center, not under his mandible. So the thought is normally when you hang yourself, you're hanging yourself more here than here. If this is where the mark is, that's somebody garroting you,
or choking you.
Well, so again, if you've got a mark on your neck, it's not necessarily hands, because then you'd see a couple different pressure points. But if somebody, again, not necessarily piano wire was the old way the mob would do it, right? They get the piano wire around the neck. But if you had anything, it doesn't take much to do a solid ordinary joint. That'll take
not
you
only that,
fast.
you could, there's other ways to make it look like, you can, a rear naked choke by a person, is going to knock you out.
And then you can do whatever.
Then you can do whatever you need to do, and then make it look, however, if it was indeed murder, they had lots of time to do whatever the fuck they wanted,
to stage whatever they needed to do,
because it seemed like they had lots of time.
Because you had that window from 10:30 to 6:30, right?
That's right.
I mean, we're lucky they even found the body, for Christ's sake.
Well, even the guards. Well, the guards kind of lied. They were like,
they falsified records. They falsified records. So they said they were asleep for 3 hours or something. But
2 guards. 2 guards fell asleep.
two guards, because that's what you do, right? Hey, I'm gonna get some sleep, and you should get some sleep too. And here, don't worry about Uncle Jeff.
I'll tell you something. When you're in a situation in a place like that, where you never know what's going to kind of happen in the next few minutes or then whatever, it's not an easy place to fucking sleep in. Not saying it doesn't happen.
No.
I worked saying.
I worked when I worked for IBM in the command center. I'd have people, now mind you, it wasn't necessarily a prison, although it did feel like it sometimes. Right. You'd have shit that would get real, and you're like, we got to deal with these problems. And I would have people that were passed out under desks all over the place. It was great, I guess, if you're into that.
But and like now though, like when you used to do like checks, like room checks, you it's a physical check, but I mean now they've got technology that's like, and we used to do a walk, like when you would do your walk rounds, you would have to, walk around, punch a clock. There was like punch tickets to show that you did your walk around. Because I mean, you can just say you did it, but now that's got to be all digital. Like,
oh god, they probably put a tracker on you and say, okay, well, so Melissa works Canada Post, and with they've got these PDT, personal data terminals, I think is what they're called. So that whenever they drop off a package, scans. Whenever they get to a box, they have to scan, and it says, I got to this box at this time.
Right.
Ding, 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 ding. So I'm assuming
you'd be later or FedEx or like technology's changed so much, right? And not only has the prison systems changed, I don't know the states in terms of their prison systems, but I can't imagine they're that much different.
There were clearly procedures not followed again, and this is where we're dealing with. So let's forget this. Let's forget any of the weird conspiracies, which we will touch on. Yes. But right now we've got cameras not working. Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Process is not followed at all.
Mm-hmm.
General weirdness about what was done.
Some premeditation. Getting him into that location, right? Be it by virtue of suicide attempt.
Yep.
Yeah,
setting
there's
the stage.
A lot of setting the stage, right? It does look very suspicious. Whether it is, we'll never know.
Well, they always say assume mistake versus malice, right? So assume that what can go wrong. What is it? Murphy's Law. What can go wrong will go wrong, and in this case, everything that could go wrong went wrong. But you'd think you've got a high profile person.
The dirt this guy would have on people.
Dirt this guy. Yeah, I know.
Like not just dirt, like ruin your fucking life dirt. This is the dirt that like filters throughout every aspect of your life.
And this is where they focus on. This is where one of the conspiracies focuses on. So if we look at our big three, right? We've got our Clinton, our Andrew, and our Trump, right? So Trump and Clinton, okay, I mean, I know you joke about Hillary walking in and choking the life out of Uncle Jeff, but really the person who had the most to lose from this, because they were probably the dirtiest, is
Andrew, for sure, like by far, because they were the closest, and I think that, but that not to say any one of these people would not have the, like, pick a Kevin Spacey, take a Woody Allen.
Yep.
Rich as fucking rich can be.
But if we link it back to our Diana episode, so they said MI6 was involved in Diana's death, and maybe the Special Air Service. Do you think maybe MI6 is like, okay, we got to stop cleaning up the royal family's messes?
Maybe, but MI6 would be. I think that there's probably a lot more going on, especially if he was intelligence. And we didn't really touch on that a lot, but I think this guy was a lot more than he fucking said let on. I mean, you don't just get fake IDs, and you don't get these kind of perks and stuff without having something going on, I would think.
And this is the thing when you talk about the intelligence thing. So one of the things I heard was he was the banker. He was a banker for the Mossad. Okay, so he would arrange that, which would put him firmly in the intelligence category. But they also talk about intelligence in the sense of, you let the little fish go so you can get the big fish.
Right.
Right. So if he was more useful going around doing his pedo island, because they're like, well, you know what? We let this guy go.
there was, yeah, but you know what? So one of the conspiracies that I thought was interesting was that he was Mossad.
Yeah, I've heard that a couple times.
And so was Maxwell, and they were actually working as spies for the Israelis and Israeli intelligence. And what they were doing was blackmailing prominent politicians and figures, right, to aid in, their agenda.
Which again, so just to
that
clarify,
makes,
just to clarify things, Israel does this. Maybe not the hey, we're going to blackmail people, but they spy on everybody. They spy on everybody. France is bad for it too, by the way.
Yeah.
France bugged a plane once with a bunch of executives because, again, to get an economic advantage in trade talks. Well, but Israel's in a siege. They are literally in a siege. They're surrounded
for 1,000 years. These people are used to fucking war, And yeah, so I don't know, and that's the thing, is that there's a school of thought where it's like, okay, where did he get all his money from? How many people can afford 7 luxury mansions, and like just in his assets alone are like $1 billion.
So the Virgin Islands currently have a suit against him because at the time of his death, his assets were ranked around 500 million and change, and they've only been able to track down 200 million and change. And they're like, wait a second, money's moving around.
No one actually knew, like even his assets, like there was so much. There's so much. And he had offshore accounts everywhere, so the guy was making money.
So what's your favorite conspiracy about, or what's your most plausible conspiracy for Jeff?
To me, I don't know. I think that I think he was probably killed
by who?
Prison. If I was a betting man, I would say that the Royals really don't like to be embarrassed. And pictures of their little boy, having sex with underage girls is going to be a pretty fucking embarrassing day for a royal family. If I was a betting man, if I had no choice and I had to pick a horse, that's the horse I'd pick. But I like the idea of the Mossad because it makes a lot of sense for a lot of things, like the amounts of money, like how he all of a sudden got into what he did and made so much money, and
how he was able to move in the circles he moved in.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, how some of the stuff was able, again, you go back to the sweetheart deal.
Yeah. And right. Like
that's unheard of. That deal that he got was unheard of.
Absolutely unheard of. So you kind of go, okay, how does this make any sense? Like you've seen high profile people before. They don't get this kind of treatment. They don't get let off with a little slap on the wrist. You think even Michael Jackson, if he got caught and actually was charged, like they would have thrown the fucking book at that guy, right? Nobody likes a child molester.
Once you start going down that road, so once you start seeing the charges come in,
yeah,
the book starts coming down. You might not get charges laid on you, period. And so this was a Bill Cosby's situation, right? Where they couldn't get criminal charges brought against him, so they went against him civilly. So he settled out of court, so it all went away. My favorite one, which has no bearing in real life, is that similar to Elvis, he's not dead.
You had said that, and I mean, it's entirely possible, right?
Somebody's got a video apparently of Epstein getting in a red truck down in New Mexico, driving around.
Well, let's say he's as deep and he has as much dirt as we think he does. Let's say he has a quarter of the dirt we think he does.
Yeah, okay.
He's likely got a lot more.
Most likely, yeah.
Most likely, yeah. I mean, he's not a stupid man, and he knows that he's playing a game where his life is on the line.
And that's the key thing.
Right.
Not a stupid guy. So this would be a person, although he did keep an awful lot of stuff in his safe. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, that's the stuff
on CDs. Like, why not put them on, I don't know, cloud storage or
they last forever.
They don't last forever. A CD. It degrades. CDs degrade over time.
Maybe he had a guy. He had a CD guy.
A CD guy. He had bought
those. I got a guy.
He bought that pack in bulk. He's like, I got to use them all up.
Yeah. I remember I bought 80 CDs one time for like $10. I didn't even have a CD player.
That's right. I just got a CD drive installed on my iMac.
It's not unthinkable that, if you have the influence to influence a U.S. attorney, could you fake your own death?
So this is what they talk about, right? So you got no photos of the evidence. You got him being removed from.
Is there photos of his dead body?
Oh, I'm sure there's something. Now, what I'd heard was they had talked about, one of the theories said that the distance between his like jaw and his earlobe doesn't line up with Jeff. So it's like, that's not him. But what do you say? So I agree with you. I do think the most likely, similar to Diana, the most likely thing is that, yeah, he killed himself in his cell. And we're just seeing all these questions.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that's what happened. I'm with you on, I suspect a powerful person with resources and ruthlessness, which sounds kind of like our royal family folks.
Wait a minute. That queen, she looks cute. She's a cute little lady.
I'm tired of cleaning up your messes, Andrew.
Oh, can you see her stomping around? Fuck.
It's just
like, oh shit.
Damn it. Sorry, Mom. I promise
I'll be good. Give me my keys. I'm going driving again.
I'm going driving. Dad,
only when she settles down.
Give me the keys, Dad.
So you just see these like you horny fucking guys. Charles, you dirty pig, Andrew. Like
Charles apparently looks like a pagan of virtue compared to Andrew.
Right? You know, Charles just wanted to be with that one girl that he fell in love with.
But it's that whole idea that when you play the whole Game of Thrones thing, it does kind of make sense that they have the resources. And now, again, could they send somebody to New York? I mean, you'd think somebody would roll over at this point. So the two guards who were asleep.
Oh, don't kid yourself. They've got spies everywhere.
But you'd think
every nation has people planted places. Come on.
It's the guards being asleep. Okay. The guards falling. Now, assuming they weren't drugged, which who knows? I read that on one theory that they were asleep because they were drugged.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So cameras in prison. It's not like, at a fucking school or at the mall. Okay. A camera goes down in the prison. It's a bad fucking day.
You don't put on the list saying we need to fix this camera.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. That camera gets fixed. That person gets moved. Doesn't matter who you are. Why? Because that's the rules.
And that's why there are cameras there, because we've all seen movies.
Yeah. Well, not just that, for the safety of the client, the inmate, for the safety of the guards, for the, like if anything can be said about, oh, well, this guard hit me, so it's for everybody's protection. It keeps everybody honest, right?
That's why I'm a big fan of body cams.
Yeah. It keeps you honest. And, you're less likely to do stupid shit on camera, guards included.
Unless it's YouTube, in which case, here we are.
Oh, well, that's it. But here we are.
Here we are.
So, yeah, I think that's what we'll, but I think we need to revisit this when there's more information, because I'd like to.
I don't know if we'll see more information. A bunch of stuff's getting unsealed. We'll see, but
we'll see what it is. But for the record, he's a douchebag. I mean, I have no, he's dead. I don't know. He was just a horrible person. But did he die of his own hand? Probably not.
Or is he dead?
I fucking hope he is. He was a terrible person.
Again, not a lot of great things were said about him, in the sense of, when Trump says, oh, he likes girls almost as much as I do, but a bit on the young side. When Trump says something like that, you're like, okay. And when Trump distances himself from you,
grab him by the pussy. Right, Trump. But what's our next topic?
Okay, so I thought long and hard about this went through a bunch of our old episodes. The Philadelphia experiment.
Oh, okay. I like that.
We've got to get back. So I figure we come on back to something that
get back to crazy. I like
back to because we touched on it in the Montauk episode.
Yes.
And I don't want us to rehash the Montauk episode, but I do want us to touch on the Philadelphia experiment, what it was theoretically supposed to be, et cetera, et cetera. And again, we'll see. It might change.
I like that stuff. We'll see. And I don't think it'll be a Montauk sort of idea.
I don't want to touch on the Montauk stuff at all. I'm going to say, if you're interested in the connection to the Montauk Project, go look at the Montauk Project episode. Otherwise, we're not going to talk about the guys jumping off and using time travel.
You're so bitter about Montauk.
I'm not bitter about it, but it was.
You'll never get that time back.
It's right up. It's right up there with the Pizzagate thing.
Pizzagate? What the fuck? Is that another topic?
You seriously don't know about Pizzagate? Oh, maybe we should do Pizzagate. No, I don't want to touch Pizzagate. Basically, if I had to summarize Pizzagate, it's Democratic pedophile satanic ring operating out of a pizzeria.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even want to touch it. I don't even want to touch it. Don't want to touch. Yeah, maybe they do. Bill.
And
Bill
on that note, thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.
Like and subscribe, folks.
Like and subscribe. Leave us a comment if for future episodes. Yeah. Leave us a comment. If you do, we like it. And Corey doesn't, think it's like Montauk, then we'll give you a shout out.
Even if I do think it's like Montauk, we'll still do it. Just a plug for the site, folks. Go to www.orderedchaos.ca, not .com. You can check out the episode notes for all our episodes. I put a lot of work into it, and I don't know.
Yeah,
check them out.
Do it. Yeah, don't be a meat sack. Do it. You'll enjoy it.
Don't be a ball sack.
From the OC, I'm Phil. This is my co-host, Corey. And thank you very much for watching. Have a good night.
Take care, folks.